The issues surrounding plagiarism can often be confusing and misunderstood, possibly resulting in fear, frustration, or confusion for students. This seminar, to your credit, using the words and ideas of others correctly, is intended to address your questions and your concerns regarding plagiarism and academic integrity. It's important that all students become familiar with the Code of Student Behavior. This segment will address the Code of Student Behavior in relationship to plagiarism and other code-related issues. What is plagiarism? Now, many of you will think you know what it is because you've seen it at the bottom of your syllabi for many years now. But I think it's important that we understand the exact definition of plagiarism and the nuances of it. So I want to go over that. So first of all, I want us to look at the definition as defined in the Student Code of Behavior here at the University of Alberta. So I'm going to read that definition. Plagiarism is the submission by a student of the words, ideas, images, or data of another person as the student's own in any academic writing, essay, thesis, research project, or assignment in a course or program of study. So this is the definition that we know. However, what I want to do is break that definition down into more manageable parts so that we understand it better. So first of all, let's look at if we use someone else's words, their exact words, and we do not use quotation marks, then we have plagiarized. So we have to use quotation marks if we use someone else's words. Now the question most times I get asked by students is, how many words of someone else can I use before I must use quotation marks? And I've heard 3 words, 5 words, 7 words, 3 sentences. And all of those are incorrect. We cannot make this a mathematical formula for how many words we can use. But rather, we have to look at the relationship between the words and the ideas. So in some cases, you're going to find that even if you use 1 word of someone else's, you need to quote that word and you need to cite that word. Now obviously, if I use the word pen in my paper, I don't need to reference that, I don't need to quote it. But if I use a simple word, a normal word, that someone else has used in a special and unique way, and I use that same simple common word in the same special and unique way, I need to quote that word and I need to reference it because in fact the original writer has affixed an idea with that simple common word. So the second aspect of plagiarism we want to look at is if I take someone's ideas and I paraphrase them in my own words and I don't indicate where I got that idea from, then I've plagiarized. So the goal here is, even if we do a great job paraphrasing, we still need to reference, we still need to cite, where did I get that original idea, those original words from? Third aspect, data and statistics. Now, if you don't collect the data and statistics yourself, you need to tell us where you got them. Doesn't matter where you got them, you just need to tell us where you got them from. You have to give credit to the original source. Now, if I ask you a simple question like, how many people live in Canada? What's the population of Canada? And you say 34 million. Do you need to reference that? No, because it's not a precise, specific number. It's a general understood piece of what we could loosely call common knowledge. However, if you came in to me and wrote in your paper and said 33,956,323 people live in Canada, you'd need to reference that. You didn't come up with that. You didn't count all the people in Canada. So you use data, you use statistics, make sure you reference who they're from. The last area is also connected to technology. Pictures, graphics, images, tables, and graphs, music and sound, diagrams. If we use any of those things in our papers or, and this is very important, in our presentations, we need to cite the source, where I got those from. So PowerPoint has been a wonderful, beautiful thing we've used in studies, both professors and students, but often when we use a PowerPoint and we use a picture, or we use sound, or we use data, a chart, we don't reference it. Now we've plagiarized. So be careful, make sure whatever you use in your presentations, whatever graphics you use in your paper, reference them. Now one issue's come up that I've noticed over and over students in particular disciplines, they find a chart or a graph in a paper, in a book, textbook. They say, well, you know, I want to change the color and I'm going to change the shape. So they change the color of the graph, they change the shape of the graph, but what haven't they changed is the data. So if you want to change the graph, go ahead, you still have to reference the original source and put something like adapted from, and then put the original source. So any changes you make to data, you still have to reflect where you got that original data from. So that breaks down plagiarism a little bit finer for us, so we make sure we understand all the nuances when we're using someone's words, someone's ideas, someone's data, or someone's images or sounds. Now, I also want to address two other issues here that are connected in my mind to plagiarism, although in fact they are not plagiarism. And in our code of student behavior, we call these inappropriate academic behaviors. So we're going to talk about those. The first one I want to talk about, I'll read it for you. No student shall represent another's substantial editorial or compositional assistance on an assignment as the student's own work. Now, codes of behavior are sometimes difficult to understand because they're written in a very kind of generalized way. The key word in this particular definition is the word substantial. Now, what does that mean? What is substantial editorial or compositional assistance? Editorial or compositional assistance refers to helping someone. So can you get help on your papers? Absolutely, you can. I do this all the time. I work with students over and over again on their papers. But do I substantially help them? Now, I'm going to tell you a story to help you understand this definition, because I think this is a significant problem, but we don't know really how to understand it or define it. So many years ago, I had a student, and I read the student's paper, and I could recognize something wasn't right here. I don't think these were the student's words. So I asked the student to come to my office, and the first question I asked them was, did you get any help on your paper? And they said, no, I wrote my paper myself. I said, okay. Then, because they weren't forthright with me, I had to push them a little bit further. And so I found a sentence in their paper. And I said, could you read that sentence for me? They read the sentence for me. And then I said, could you tell me what that sentence means? And they tried to tell me what it meant, and they didn't do a very good job. They kind of half got it. So I pointed to another sentence. I said, could you tell me what that sentence means? And the student, same thing. They kind of could tell me, but not very clearly. Then I said, okay, this word here, what's this word mean? And they couldn't tell me what the word meant. And I pointed to another word. They couldn't tell me what that word meant. Now, then the student finally broke down and said, I had to get help on the paper because I need to do well in your course, etc. Now, how do we know the student violated this code? We know because the student couldn't explain their own sentences. The student couldn't explain even words in their paper. So we know, at that point, they received substantial editorial or compositional assistance because the words and the ideas no longer represented the student's words and ideas or the student's ability. So I hope that makes sense, because this code is very important, and you can get help. Just make sure that you understand how much help you should get, and that when you finally submit your paper, those words and ideas have become a part of you. They are, in fact, your words and your ideas at that point. The second code I want to refer to is this, and I'll read this one. It's a bit longer, but equally as important. No student shall submit in any course or program of study without the written approval of the course instructor all or a substantial portion of any academic writing, essay, thesis, research report, project, assignment, presentation, or poster for which credit has been previously obtained by the student, or which has been or is being submitted by the student in another course or program of study in the university or elsewhere. So that's very wordy, but let's boil that down. What is this saying to us? It's essentially saying this: you can't hand in the same work twice. So what does this mean? You hand in a paper to one professor and you get an A, and you go, boy, this is a great paper. And you decide, it's such a great paper, I want to hand it again to another professor. You can't do that. Why can't you do that? Yes, it's your paper. Absolutely, it's your paper. However, you already got credit for it. You got a mark for it, right? You got your A. So now that paper's done. You can't keep submitting it. Now you'll notice in this definition that we have the same word, substantial portion. So can you take a sentence or two? Absolutely. Could you take a paragraph? Probably. But you probably can't take 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 pages and just put it into another paper, because you already received credit for it. You'll also notice here it says in another university or another course you're in. So you cannot hand in parts of the same paper to 2 courses. Now, there's one other caveat in this particular definition. It says without the written approval of the course instructor. What this means is you can do it if your instructor says you can do it. So if you go to an instructor and say, you know, I got an A in this paper, I'd like to submit it for your class. I don't think your professor is going to say yes, because your professor expects you to not only learn something in his course or her course, but they expect you to also do some work. So the professor's not going to say, please, just hand it in again. However, you might say to a professor, you know, I'm researching in this area for this course, and I'm also doing similar research in your course. Some of it is going to be the same. Could I use some of it in your course that I'm using for the other course? In most cases, professors are going to say yes, because you're integrating your course material much better. Okay? So, although those 2 pieces of the code are not plagiarism, they're somewhat connected to the way we use words and ideas of ourselves as well as other people.